Good day, everyone. I am Miranda Benson, Associate Director of University Partnerships at Coursera, and I'd love to welcome you to our panel session today on global career pathways, strengthening university and employer collaboration. So today we're going to discuss how universities and employers can work together to create more effective pathways to employment for learners all around the world. We've heard today in previous sessions, and we all know that the global job market is evolving at a very rapid pace. And it's more critical than ever that universities are equipping their students with the knowledge and the skills to be successful in their chosen career path. And we also know that employers play a key role in this process as well by providing industry-specific guidance, mentorship, and work-based learning opportunities. So today we're going to examine how these two groups can work together to create more effective pathways to make sure that their relationship is strengthened and learners can see the benefit of their education. We hope that today will be informative for everyone and insightful, and then we can generate some really meaningful ideas out of this conversation about how to make those pathways more clear. First, I'd like to get a shout out of appreciation to my chat moderator, Juan Kikushima. He is going to be taking your questions and your thoughts in the chat. And now I'd like to introduce my lovely panelists. First and foremost, absolute pleasure to be sharing in this conversation with you today. We have such tremendous expertise on the stage, so to speak. With either pairing students with career pathways or employees with educational opportunities. So first up, I'd like to introduce you, Samantha Nicolai, who is the Director of Enterprise with University of North Texas. Sam manages a plethora of partnerships, employer partnerships with the university, including American Airlines, Amazon, I think even the Dallas Cowboys. And she has been instrumental in the launch and the growth of the two programs on the Coursera platform, the Bachelor of Arts in Applied Sciences and the Bachelor of General Business. And so, Sam, I know that you've actually within recent years, transitioned from a career in K through 12 and now work with the University of North Texas with higher education. So I'd love to hear a bit about how you bring the heart of an educator to your role and what you do today.
Sure. So I spent many years in the K-12 classroom, and, as a teacher, I would talk all the time. When you're in college, you'll do this in college. When you go to college, and, a lot of my students would come to me and they'd say, Miss Nicolai, you're crazy if you think that I'm going to end up in college. I'm not the type of person that goes there. I'm not a college person. And so for me, making the step from K-12 into higher education was really about increasing access to this space. I think so often a lot of folks look at higher education about who it counts out rather than who is included. One of the things that I love about the University of North Texas is that we're an HSI, MSI, 42% first generation. Our students are largely the students who traditional higher education have at times and points in history truly counted out of this space. And so I love everything that I get to do with Coursera for UNT. These programs that we're looking at are really increasing access to higher education. We are getting people to the finish line, celebrating graduations, and then watching them go on and change their life through a rewarding career.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sam. I love that connection between K through 12 and the university to show that really this is a full team sport on making sure that people have educational opportunities and career outcomes. Next up, I would like to introduce Tim Robbins, who has a very unique perspective on career pathways. Tim has been in tech and a software engineer in his career, but recently has been front and center on the reskilling and upskilling efforts at Walmart. And so, Tim, I'd love to hear, now that you're in this unique position to see people growing in their roles through education, what's the impact, both direct and indirectly?
Sure. Thank you, Miranda. Like you mentioned, I joined Walmart right out of college 20 years ago. And there's people in this building that I've seen their face almost every day in that time frame, right? And so to me, this is an opportunity to do good for my fellow associates. And when we talk about all of the tech transformation and change that's been occurring over the past several years, it's kind of insane. The way that you handle cloud is totally different than the servers that I used to build, right? And so there's new ways of programming and all these things. And as we deprecate older technologies, we end up leaving people by the wayside. And again, some of these people I've known a long time, and they're faces and names to me. It's not just another number. And so I appreciate that this gives me an opportunity to help them remain relevant in their careers. And I have always enjoyed learning. And that's what's interesting about getting the chance to talk to people actually in education, because I think there's a shared love of learning here. And so just to have the opportunity to share that with the rest of the folks. And also, I don't know if anybody watched the award ceremony earlier, but we won the Outstanding Talent Transformation Achievement Award for 2023. Thank you. So, when you talk about the impact, it's often so nebulous, but there's really clear elements that are happening right now that I really appreciate.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, Tim, and congratulations on being a big winner. And taking away that award. That's wonderful. And last but certainly not least, Anne, I am going to try to make sure I get your title right. It is long and accomplished. So Anntremboree is with us is the Chief Digital Learning Officer with the SANS Institute at the Darden School of Business with the University of Virginia. And Anne, you just have a tremendous career. You've worn different hats in building up the online capabilities at various institutions, Stanford, Wharton School of Business, I think Coursera at some point. And so now you are front and center with working with employers on building onboarding training programs and really putting education in the hands of the people that are boots on the ground doing the job. So you have worn all of these hats and getting to see education through different lenses. Tell me why it is important for us to be having this conversation about universities and employer collaboration now.
Sure, thank you. That was glowing. And so I think, look, higher ed, the role of higher ed is shifting. And some of that role that was traditionally within higher ed's province needs to be borne by corporations and organizations. And there are multiple reasons for it. There's the cost of higher ed, there are accessibility issues, there are, questions of relevance, there's questions of trust in higher ed. And all of those things may be true. But in the end, higher education still is a collection of scholars who create knowledge that people and companies need. And so I think that higher ed has done itself a great disservice by kind of walling itself off. And so now that we have the benefit of these amazing new technologies, how can we use those technologies to serve as a little bit of an eraser, right? And blur some of those lines between higher ed and corporations. And I think both folks win, right? I think both parties are aligned here because, employers provide for professors proximity to practice, and professors provide the knowledge of how to teach, right, and domain expertise to employers and to learners at work. And it solves, I think, a relevancy problem that may occur at the university, right? Why am I studying this? Well, if there's a pathway to a job, then you know why you're studying it. And also what we've seen, and we just had a company and a manufacturing firm that we had developed some online programs for, and they came in person for a graduation. People really still value, being at a university and walking across the stage. And even if it's a certificate and not, a diploma, like that, to have a professor look at their work project and give comments on it is very valuable to folks. And so, I think we're still looking at what learning behaviors and social capital is conferred through some of these efforts, but it's definitely worth pursuing. And I think that for both parties to remain viable into the future, really we have to partner and partner better.
Yeah, I think I love what you said about the key trends, one of them being confidence in degrees and confidence that a student or a learner feels like they can get out of their education what they need to be successful in their career. And we know that it's a very real trend that learners are not feeling as confident. And so I'd love to hear from your perspective, Sam, the way that you're thinking about that trend, being very involved in degree programs and those that cater to those that, to your point, have typically been shut out of the higher education system over time.
Yeah, so I think a couple of things in that. I think one thing that's really important that we're doing from day one at the University of North Texas is teaching students how to market themselves in the job field. A lot of them come in, maybe they've worked some, food service jobs or retail jobs, and, they don't know quite what they need to tell an employer to get that career. And so from day one, we have a first year experience course that all of our students are enrolled in that starts building that language, building those skills, so that by the time they are actually looking for a job and they are looking for that career, that internship, whatever it may be, they have all of these skills to be able to sell themselves. Because that's really what it is. It's, I have these skills, I learned them, some of them, in my classroom, some of them I learned from this Google cert that I did. How can I +1 my degree with certificates? And then being able to go into an employer and sell themselves in that way and say, like, this is what I can bring to you because of all of these experience I've had at the University of North Texas. And so really it's just building in those skills from the beginning, getting them the language and the tools they need to be able to do that. But also we recognize, in this digital age, what they're learning in the classroom is, content that's really great, kind of theory-based content, but sometimes they really just need some of the hard skills. And that's where we turn to our partnership with the Coursera Career Academy, where they can, take the Google IT certificate, or they can do, as they were talking about in the last session, the Google Data Analytics certificate. And then they're, getting those very tangible skills to take and market themselves in a career field. And then they can also kind of pair that with their learnings at UNT by taking, one of our more, kind of theoretical based certificates, adding that to their degree program. We partner with a lot of companies in the DFW area for training for their employees. And so, we kind of see the relationship for students going into their career field as longer than just the 4 years they're at North Texas. We want to follow them into their career space. We want to continue to be that upskiller and reskiller that they're looking for. We want to have those conversations so that we can stay right on the brink of all of the new technologies that are coming out, so that we can help keep our students and our graduates as competitive as possible in the workforce.
I love that, Sam. Tim, hearing what Sam said, how are employees thinking of, now that you've started this learning program with them and they have access to different variations of domain areas, of major areas, and different types of courses, how are they thinking about their learning journey while managing full-time employment and all of the life things that students, employees, learners often have?
Sure. It's clearly a different experience for an adult learner than it is someone that's still in college, right? And there were so many good points made along the way between the two of them. When you're in college, you're there specifically for the purpose of learning and taking classes and getting a degree, right? And I worked, and I'm sure a lot of other folks work through college too, but it's different. And you mentioned, I tried to go back to college a number of years ago with a wife and a kid and stuff, and I was like, man, this is just not happening. And when you look to, the economy right now is kind of slowing down, and corporations are looking at their hiring practices, and so there's an onus on people to balance I have to be productive and prove that I'm valuable. And I also have to stay relevant and on top of everything. And so there's also a difference too between if somebody's a new hire right out of college versus if somebody has been in the workforce 10 or 15 years. And when you reapproach learning as an adult after you've been out of it for a while, it's honestly really hard to get your mind into the place to sit down and absorb new material. So I think really what it requires is, and we've kind of focused on the early adopters so far, and we've been gaining enough traction that we're getting into more of the late adopter group right now. But really, you have to find people that, whether they love the learning or they love the challenge or they just want something better for themselves, like you need people that have a fire in their belly to go get more. And that's what we're starting with, right? And then what happens too is other people start to see that, and oh wow, so and so if they have time and they're out here handling business, what's my excuse, And so it's kind of it's you start with these first few people, and then you build into an entire culture of learning. In some ways, that's exactly what we're trying to do, is replicate that university mindset of I'm here to learn. And it's been a real interesting journey, and I'm really glad to see how people have responded to it so far.
It sounds really exciting. And I'd be interested, Anne, to hear from your perspective. That sounds like a dream for one of the employers that you partner with, right? You start with a small group and it just catches fire. And then you have more and more people that are seeking additional learning opportunities and upskilling. So tell me what the employers that you're partnering with are thinking about now that, education is evolving constantly. So how are they thinking about training programs, and how are they thinking about onboarding processes that accommodate all of the different needs that learners have?
Sure. So I will back up and say, we do training and onboarding, but it's not, I think it's a different level of professionals. And we need everybody, right? Because if the vice presidents and the managers don't have a learning mindset, then they're not going to provide opportunities for the folks below. And that is, frankly, the discussion that we are now having that seemed radical to have 6-7 years ago, right? So now when we talk to employers, we work for business school, right? So we have people who come and say, well, I have, want to bring 20 people, and do some leadership exercises, and we're going to go row on the river, and we're going to have, sushi tasting at night or whatever it is. Wrapped around a lot of case method and experiential learning. Now we're talking about, well, how do we bring this back, right? You can't bring it back except by using technology. And so I think it's an amazingly fertile time to start talking with folks at these companies about how they create that culture and those opportunities within their company. And so what we've mostly been working on is layering things on top of the online course, right? So the solution is sort of the online course, but then we partner with faculty, designers, learning and development at the company, and we generally have a good, hopefully more than an hour, but at least an hour, really sitting and thinking through, well, what is a quality learning experience for someone who is doing this during working hours or maybe at night, but doesn't have, a ton of time? What will make it valuable? How do we play with assessments so that they are applicable to what the challenges that people are facing at work? What's our, rinse and repeat cycle, right? So how do we iterate, and improve? How do we know more about the learner? This is where, one of the great things about the platform, the Coursera platform in particular, is the ease of data on the learners, and not just topics, but how they're interacting. And so it's, I don't have a short, do this and it's, it's amazing. It's a rapidly evolving field, but those are the kinds of things that we're looking at really. And it starts with this, question to the executives of how are we going to bring this back to fill in name of company and then cascade down, and not just in, skills. I don't want to, demean any kind of hard skill, but a lot of times what people need to advance, if they're technically proficient at something, or the
Yeah.
soft skills, and so how do we unlock that capital, that social capital within a company using technology and partnerships?
Yeah. And I think that was a perfect segue to talk about technology, because, and we've been talking about this for years now, we know digitization is happening. And I think with the release of ChatGPT, there's even more conversation. And one perspective that I think we should consider is, how does this impact the learners, the students that are out there worried about their role as a result of AI? And how are we connecting those dots to another job that can, help them meet their livelihood expectations? So, Sam, I'd love to hear anything that you're doing at University of North Texas to insert more technical skills into your programs. And I'd love to hear from all of you on that, because this is a big, important topic.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so I was at a conference a couple weeks ago, and there was a session on ChatGPT, and the person had prepared this whole session, and the night before, the new ChatGPT came out. And so by the time this person was presenting, it was already irrelevant and out of date. And I think we see that happening again and again with technology. We need to be as nimble as a university can be in terms of gathering information and learning how to use technology and implementing that into our classroom. I mean, like, this can't be okay, well, we'll add this in next semester. It needs to be we'll add this in next week. And really kind of looking at the content. And, we've got a lot of great faculty that are, immersed with their industry boards. They've got folks who are coming into the university on a regular basis that are sharing where their needs are as a company, so that our faculty members can build programs so that the folks that are graduating are the folks these companies want to hire with the digital skills necessary. So, it's not just about looking at, what's going to happen in the digital space tomorrow, but it's a lot about, what we were talking about this morning, what's going to happen in the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years in the digital space, and starting to plan for that, build programs around that, and have appropriate people in the mix sharing, tips and tricks for moving our programs further, for getting our students the information they need to be relevant and competitive in the job market once they graduate, and then also to be a leader in the tech field. I think for our students, we want them to succeed, but we also want to graduate them with skills that they're going to use in their company to stand out. They're going to have, skills that maybe not everyone else that is coming in their cohort will have. And so they're going to stand out by having, these great skills that they learned from the University of North Texas.
Yeah. Key question, how do we be nimble? Because it's important in what we're doing. And do you have additional thoughts on this in terms of the work that you're doing?
Sure. I mean, I think a lot of it is, I will give you a very short answer, which is that how we're approaching it is we are not teaching the technology. We are putting students or providing opportunities and experiences for people to use the technologies in assessments or in programs so that they can start thinking about how it applies specifically to their industry. Because it's a little bit of catching a falling knife, right, with trying to keep up with what's going to happen. But again, people need to be taught how to manage it, how to think about it. And it's hard to think about it if you can't use it. And so we're getting experiential with technology, which sounds, 10 years ago would have sounded insane, but, we're creating a metaverse environment specifically so that people can experience different kinds of, training. So if you're, for instance, in a supply chain class and you're working on a problem and you're thinking about a distribution center or fulfillment area, Well, what if you now have the ability to be that fulfillment person for 10 minutes, right? How does that change how you think about this? So those are the kinds of things we're thinking about. How do we incorporate these technologies into the classroom so that people can start forming ideas on how to manage them?
And I think sorry, I'm going to jump in real quick. I think it's your metaphor of catching a falling knife so perfect, because that seems a little scary to me. And I think that's how we think about new technology a lot of the time, like ChatGPT came out and there's the initial reaction is always, oh my gosh, this is scary and it's going to change everything. And, it's going to be terrible. And so, I think it's getting our students comfortable with catching that falling knife, giving them the skills to be able to adapt to new technologies as they come out, not necessarily like sit down and take a class on every single technology, but let's build you in the skills so that you know how to not be afraid to try a technology and, see what happens, see what it can do and how it can help you.
Exactly.
Tim, I am positive you work with an eclectic group in upskilling and reskilling, and you probably have those that have really strong skills in the quote unquote soft skills, but are really challenged by taking on more tech learning and adapting in that way. So I'd love to hear your perspective about the group that you work with and how you're helping prepare learners that it might be completely out of their wheelhouse to take on some of these new tech skills that they need.
Sure. And I'm also going to munge this in with this previous conversation about AI, because as a tech guy, I cannot like pass this up. So, right, real quick, we just have to hope that long term, the AI is nice to us. Okay. In the short term, we can talk about, and this is where these two questions come together, because the truth is there's no difference in the impact of ChatGPT, AI level of technology, and say the internet. And we've already been through this revolution. Like, I was in college when it happened. I grew up with no compute. Well, I mean, my dad was a nerd too, so we had a Commodore 64. But the moral of the story is that it comes down to fundamentals, okay? If you understand the underlying assumptions that goes into what makes a robust performance system, then it doesn't matter if you're the one literally writing the code or not, okay? And this is really where it goes to, because the first obvious place is, you're talking about taking people with soft skills and moving them into technology, but really it's going to be going the other direction, because the low-level technology work is going to be subsumed into these AIs. Okay, that's like the first step, is to make it program in a decent fashion. Okay, so we do have, I have leaders that, to understand the technology that they support or are pushing for or use, again, the cloud is a great instance, and we do have small levels of AI, machine learning type things, but to understand that to at least a conversant level. And I really think that's where it comes from too. Like, when I see people coming out of college, it's more about a base level of understanding that we can build on. And the same thing here. I do see people struggling. I will be honest. It's difficult to go from a thinking, speaking mindset to a technologically creation building mindset. And again, that's where I come back to, if we have the base level of understanding, the foundational knowledge of what makes good systems, then it's pretty good. A lot of the people, I will say, because of the methodology that we've used to directly answer your question, the people that are taking classes have been self-selecting, okay? They have been the people who are challenging themselves. So it's not really reflective of an entire organization to say, hey, my first 200 learners are absolutely out here killing it, right? And so that's really a thoughtful question, though, to go into, how do we engage the rest of the learners?
Yeah.
And, something Ann mentioned before earlier, was the need for executives to be involved. The first person I pitched this to was my vice president. And it was simply because of the fact that he was bought into the learning. And not only that, to give me a platform, but to also reinforce the thought with people, it's okay to push off work to grow. It's okay to, not all of it, right? I mean, 10% of time or something like that, but it's okay. And seeing that, and the more conservative, if you've been in the workforce for a long time, you're more concerned about maintaining your position and paying for the house and stuff. So it calms people. right? To see a thorough level of support, and partnering with Coursera and the tools that y'all have and just the platform and the learnings there, it kind of sells itself once you look at it. And so I've been really happy to see folks of all levels engage themselves.
That's such a great point. And I love the focus, Tim, that you mentioned on literacy and just helping people feel comfortable with the languages and the topics that are being discussed around them every day, and not necessarily needing to become the coder in the background. That is great news for me. So I'd love for us to talk through how we make this concrete. So I am a student, I am a learner, and I want to understand the pathway between my program at UNT, where I'm earning a degree in applied sciences, and I've taken these professional certificates that stack into this degree. But now I am going out into the employment world, and maybe my employer doesn't know what an applied arts and sciences degree is and what that's going to do for me. Can you share, Sam, what are some things that you do to make sure that a learner can build those pathways to selling themselves better to an employer, but also what you do with employers to make sure that they understand what a UNT graduate can bring to their organization?
Absolutely. So, one of the final courses all of our students take in the Applied Arts and Sciences program is called Managing Your 21st Century Career. And so this course is, their last step with UNT before they step into the world of their career. And we want to make sure that that's where they get all their tools. And so another feature of this degree is I like to refer to it as kind of a choose your own adventure degree. So no two degree plans are going to look identical. And what that means is that we're graduating a whole lot of people with a whole lot of different skill sets. And so it really is important in that class for the students to have like that individualized thought time where they're looking at the courses they've taken, they're looking at the skills that they've learned, and then they're starting to translate them to a career. What does it look like that I took this, data visualization class in my degree program and I'm moving on, towards a career? How can I use what I learned in that class using, Tableau, right? How can I, communicate that to a future employer? How can I use my Tableau skills to help my resume stand out? How can I, build in all of these different features? Another thing about this degree is it's multidisciplinary. So, we may have someone who has, data analytics, they may have IT with the Google IT, and then they may have management. And so, all of those things really play into one another, and it's really up to the student, but it's up to us to teach the student how to do it, to really talk about how those things really make them an ideal candidate above maybe someone who just has management experience or who just has data analytics experience. They've got a more well-rounded kind of education where they can go in and, use their management skills to lead a data viz team or something like that, but also we do have to talk to our employers. That's one of the things that I do frequently in our area is I am, kind of selling this degree to the employers, but I'm also talking about our students that are coming out of the program. Every time I go into a company in DFW and I start talking about this degree, I hear, how can we get them here now? Like, let's go, because they love just the well-roundedness of the degree. And what's special about these students is, a lot of them are non-traditional new majority learners who are coming to us with life experience. So they've got, some work experience, they've got life experience, they're going to school, they're, parenting, they're, doing all of the things at the same time. And now they're going to go to a career and they already have all of the skills they need to be an amazing employee for a company. And what's great about, conversations that we have around this specific degree is as soon as we start to talk about it as a multidisciplinary degree and all the different spaces they're getting their learning from, employers are like, wait, that's what I want. I want someone who has this well-rounded experience, who can talk data, who can talk IT, and who can talk management all at the same time. And so, they get really excited about hiring students. But ultimately, it's really helping to build in how students are going to sell themselves with this degree. They have to have all of the language necessary to be able to sell themselves. Unfortunately, we can't go into their interviews with them and tell them how awesome they are, but they are. So we use that class, that Managing a 21st Century Career class, to start to build in all of that. Students also talk to one another on Slack. And through that Slack experience, they're talking about interviews they've had. They're talking about, hey, I learned this thing in my class, and I think it would be really good to, in this type of career. Or, we had one student who owned his own business. He was a CEO, and he's all of a sudden out there in Slack saying, you are the people I want to hire for my company because I know what you're learning and it's great. And I want, this type of well-rounded employee for my company. So, it's a challenge to communicate fully what the degree is, but being able to do that means that our students are head and shoulders above other peers in that resume stack, for sure.
What a success story. And I love the connection. Because a good portion of the time, the challenge can be the network for our students and learners, and not everyone has the same network or access to jobs. So the ability to take a course and just be thinking about your career, I personally kind of want to take that course. It sounds very exciting. I wish I had access.
I can get you signed up, Miranda.
I love the idea of that. And then I love the very human relationship with the employer, for them to understand this is more than a title of a degree on a resume, but this is what these students are accomplishing. Anne or Tim, any thoughts on this kind of strategy or any success stories from your personal experience and what you're doing?
I'll jump in. I got to be honest. It sounds like she just kind of described what I was talking about, right? Which is very much, if you have the solid foundation, or whatever you term it as, that's great, because the most important thing is that people are enthusiastic, and it's not necessarily confident in their abilities, because you could be confident without reason sometimes. But it's about a lack of fear in the application of it. And I think that's a really interesting aspect of this. I kind of want to talk to y'all some more afterwards. I got to be honest.
That'd be great.
There's some learning here.
So, go ahead. Sorry, Tim.
No, please go ahead, Anne. Yeah.
So we run into this, and we did a study, a pilot study about a year ago. We're in the process of a much larger study about the value of credentials. And I mean, I think the problem is, the backdrop for all of this is that the degree is still a gold standard, and the degree is also wildly imprecise in a world that's demanding more and more precision. And so how do we get that precision, right? And how do we do that? Like, is it really going to be cloning Sam, and having her do this over and over again? Or how can we educate HR systems and companies about what it is that they need? And so one tactic that we've experimented with that has borne some results is that, when we go to visit a company, we'll actually look at their hiring data and say, look, over the past 7 years, you seem to be hiring a lot more people with these kinds of skills, based on our knowledge of educating, for decades of working with companies and educating folks. We think that these might possibly be some adjacent skills that you might need, right? That we could provide. But I think the signaling system, so if you think of a degree as a signal or a currency, I think that system is not optimized, would be probably the polite way to put it right now.
That's
So
fair.
more work to be done.
That's very
Because
fair.
I really don't believe that everybody needs to get a degree. I mean, I think there's a lot of value in it. I think it's fantastic. Encouraging my own child to get one. But I think we've become over reliant on them, and I think they're flabby. And I think by always anchoring to that, we're perpetuating this machine that maybe is not serving society at this point.
I think, oh, go ahead, Tim.
I'm sorry. So I heard a term recently, and it may have been while we were practicing, and I want to use it. It's skills taxonomy, which, right, I basically think it means a glossary of what we call work.
Yes, exactly right.
To be able to have some kind of understanding of that, like what is this learning at this area versus this college versus, right? So just kind of some level set of understanding.
Yeah, I think, I mean, not to get too big or broad, but I mean, I think we rely on the brand system of universities and geographic, closeness, right? So in the past, like if you went to a school that everybody knew the name of, it was assumed you were smart. And if you're a local employer and you went to a school that the employer knew because they drove by it every day, then that also gave you an edge. And so those were the things that kind of mattered. And now, technology has blown that apart. So now you don't have to go to your local college. You can take a course from anywhere. And some of these top brand universities have now opened up a lot of their content. And so now what does any of that mean? Right. And HR people, at least the ones we've spoken to, are like, answer, I don't know. I don't know what it means.
And I think that's a really great point around how micro-credentials have exploded in terms of offering across the globe. And we still seem to be in a place, push on me if I'm wrong here, on where to fit those in, right? What does that mean? And maybe to your point, Anne, the reliance on a degree is because for so long that has been a clear-cut way of demonstrating that you have certain skills. But now there's almost so many that employers might feel a bit overwhelmed with knowing how to utilize them in their hiring process. Tim, from your experience and your seat, does that resonate? How are you thinking about it with your organization?
It absolutely resonates. And it's interesting, like in the 80s, if you wanted to get a house mortgage, you went to the local bank and talked to the person, right? And it's the same concept. And now you have this centralized credit bureau that tells you literally how good you are at paying your bills. And I think we kind of need to work towards something like that. Because it's so tough, again, when you sit across from somebody, you can't tell if they're actually going to deliver what they talk. And so even working past that is difficult. This is one thing I like about the Coursera product is that it A, tests you when you take the thing, and B, you can do, I don't remember what level setting or something like that, where you go in and check, like, what is my skill set in this particular area, and it'll give you back a proficiency level. And so I think that we as employers, we definitely have to get a lot more advanced about the ways that we bring people on. Like some companies, they make you do coding tests and things like that, and those are actually really not good tests inside of an interview. It's known that doesn't give good results. But it's kind of like what Anne was saying, like for the lack of anything else, the degree is kind of where it goes. And we have experimented with bringing on boot camp programs and things like that, but the throughput rate's just not the same. Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting insight. And I think it's great now for us to touch on what are the challenges? What is the work that needs to be done still in terms of this roadmap, this connection between employers and universities? If you could, wave your magic wand as from a university perspective, Anne and Sam, what would you like employers to bring to the table that would make the connection from education to employment smoother for your students and for your learners?
So I'll say we don't work generally with folks to get their first jobs. We work with folks who want to, at various stages, right, improve their jobs or get their next job. And generally they're not super switchers, but it's how do I really advance? And so, but no one can tell me what the soft skills are that really require people to advance. And it makes me suspect that there's a whole lot of, stuff that maybe when we, you turn on the light and all the roaches scatter, like I think we have that moment, but when we actually start thinking about why it is that some people get promoted and some people don't. But I think that is honestly, if I magic wand time, that's what I think we need to start looking at. Because how do you promote a knowledge worker, right? I mean, when you're trying to figure out how to promote people who use their labor, like their physical labor, right? Or working machines, like it's like, oh, well, this person does it better and faster and quicker and is nice or whatever. But when someone is a knowledge worker, what does promotability mean? And so I would love for companies to think about answering that question, because we can partner with helping examine that question. I think a university should also study it, and it should be made that should be made available and be much more transparent than it is now.
Yeah, from my perspective, it's integration. I think, for us as the institution of higher education, education is our business. We think about education all the time. We think about learning all the time. And we don't think about all of the things that our partners in industry are thinking about. And so I think if we can get those two thought processes in a room consistently, I think that's our golden nugget here. I think that, one of the things that we're working to do here at the University of North Texas, especially we have a new campus out in Frisco, Texas, which is one of the fastest growing cities in the country right now. And, we have a space out there that is for our industry partners to come and camp out on campus, basically. There's a conference room, there's tables, there's chairs for them to come and have a presence on campus. We want companies in our area to know our students and vice versa. We want them, to be speaking in classes. We want them to be working together with faculty. We want them to be doing sponsored research. We want them in all of the different spaces we're in as a university. We want our industry partners to be in those spaces as well, because it makes us better as a university. And I think it makes them better as a company as well, because we're at the forefront of knowledge together. That's our goal with our industry partnerships, is that, we would be partnering with them in as many different facets of the university as possible. It's not just an advancement thing, or it's not just a career center thing, but it's in all the different areas that we work in.
Wonderful. Tim, you can wave your magic wand and partner with universities more effectively to make sure that employees have the skills that they need. What would you wish for?
A deep desire to improve yourself, because that's really the ultimate thing, that even a thirst for knowledge still comes from, I'm trying to challenge myself. I'm trying to build myself into something new. And like when we talk about sitting down, yeah, it's cool to, because I was thinking the same answer as Sam was, like, we need to be more integrated, but at the same time, that's not really repeatable across the board, and so I think that, and Anne made some good points too. And, I think when it comes to promotability, there's two things. It's who you know and what you do. And the problem is we don't have a taxonomy for that any more than we do for the skills, right? So this has actually brought up a lot of really almost unanswerable questions in my mind, these conversations. If I was to say, it's too much to ask for a consistent product from all schools. But I got to be honest, the like engineer in me is like, if y'all would give me consistent outputs,
Exactly.
I would have consistent inputs. And that's
Right.
just not how the world works, right? But I definitely think it's important. We've got a partner, because what is important today is not going to be important a year from now. And so it's just a matter of staying on top of things and having even some kind of open dialogue is always important. The door needs to be open. Somebody could walk through and have the talk if they want to.
Wonderful. Well, I think we should go to just a few questions that we have time for. So one of our questions is, are we sure that the students before the start of training know how they will apply the skills acquired in training and evaluate the usefulness of the proposed course? So I think this is speaking to, how do we make sure that we are assessing whether what we think we're teaching is what we're actually teaching, and whether the student is truly coming out with skills that are going to help the employer and therefore help the student. So I'd love to hear from any of you on that topic.
I can share a little bit about something that we're doing with Toyota specifically. So we have a relationship with them around upskilling their employees in data analytics. Data analytics is the hot thing everywhere. Everyone's looking for data analysts. But instead of asking all of their people to go get a master's in data analytics, they have brought it in-house. So they partner with us. We take our kind of off-the-shelf data analytics courses, we pare them down to the need-to-know information. We weave in Toyota examples and case studies. We work very closely with the Toyota team on what they want these folks to be able to do at the end of it. And so we talk in KPIs and we talk in, learning outcomes with the industry people. And we're trying to bring this in as much as possible. Like, what are the things you're looking for in your industry so that we can ensure that our programs are built in that way, are built for people who can be nimble and who can, learn how to do these new skills and use new technology on the fly. And so with these programs, we've had about 200 Toyota employees go through the program in the last year and a half. We've got many, many more scheduled to go. And what Toyota has reported then is that their folks are able to do a job that they weren't able to do before. And so they've just diversified their workforce through a partnership with a university that is really just a communication partnership. We're talking about what each other needs. We're making sure that, the skills we're building into these students are the skills that Toyota needs. And I think, ultimately, that's a little bit harder to do at scale when we're talking about larger industries. But I do think that that's part of the integration between the university and industry that's needed is, if they're talking about going in one direction, but we think they're going to go in another direction, that's not helpful. So we've got to be in communication with them. We've got to be in partnership with them so that the folks that we're graduating, the folks that we're, giving micro credentials to are leaving us with the skills that industry needs, not just the skills that we think they need.
Yeah. And it's kind of Darwinian out here. I got to be honest. If you took the class, you should be able to do the job. If you didn't do the job, then you didn't learn from it. And I mean, that's really it's totally outcome based in the industry. A lot of times what happens is we put people in the job first and then upskill them. Yeah. And I think it's like an accelerated or learn as you go on the job training kind of situation. But really, because we've talked about the same thing, how do you know that this worked? Well, it worked because the person can do it now.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Go
ahead. Yep, go for it.
Yeah, one last question. Is who and how integrates microcredits for an individual student into a certain system? So I think that this question is speaking to again, I think the point that we raised a bit earlier in terms of micro credentials, and who's saying that these confidently certify the skills that they say they are. So I don't know if any of the group has any thoughts on this. And yes.
No, I can jump in. So, there's only, you can't, well, let me take a skill where we've been using credentials and micro credentials for a long time, and that is your doctor, your dentist, right? So they come out with a credential saying that they're a doctor, and you feel okay going to them and saying, my stomach hurts, right? And you just sort of hope, you trust that, that MD means that they'll be able to diagnose you. Why? Same thing with a lawyer. Right. So there are these professional degrees that we have that sort of do this well, unless you've been treated by a sham lawyer or doctor, but they sort of do this well. And so I think that we don't need to get too radical, but we could start applying some of that professional degree mindset to some of our softer skill courses. And I say this as, having 3 degrees in various liberal arts, I love the liberal arts, and they're killing themselves because they're not letting students know what it is that is valuable about it. And employers don't necessarily know either, right? So if you're a philosophy major, right, I know from being in school that you are extremely logical, that you have fantastical critical thinking. You could probably be a good evaluator of code. You could be a good tech person. You could be a good project manager. But how do we communicate that? And so this goes back to Sam's point. I think the micro-credential becomes, at the moment, sort of the Esperanto, right? Or the mechanism by which we communicate those things.
Yeah. Well, excellent point. I have goosebumps. What an amazing panel. You all have such incredible expertise. And I was so excited to hear about all of the work that already exists. This feels like a big problem that will probably be solved over a long period of time. But I just loved hearing your success stories of what we're doing today to bridge the gap between employers and university partners. And I can't wait to have you back on another panel. You guys were amazing. So thank you so much. Thank you to our attendees for spending time with us today. Hopefully any additional questions that didn't get answered, you can send over to our team and we'll try and get an answer to you at some point.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.